Here we are. We have finally made it to the conclusion of the 2024 NFL season. A little business still needs to be handled, but if you play in those Week 18 fantasy leagues, you've already embraced the chaos. Teams, they've already clinched. Players are certainly going to rest not only as they prepare for next season, but potentially deep playoff runs. Meanwhile, some backs, they are looking to finish their story, looking to collect on some of those incentives after betting on themselves back in August. It's also going to be interesting to see what the Eagles do with Saquon Barkley as he faces his former team just 101 rushing yards shy of breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season record of 2,105 rushing yards. Now, RotoBaller, we are here to help fantasy managers make those tough lineup decisions with our Week 18. Yes, our Week 18 starts and sits at the running back position. And it starts with Bucky Irving of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they take on the New Orleans Saints. It appears as though the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have found their back of the future. Sorry, Rachaad White, it's Bucky Irving's world and we are just living in it. The rookie back has now topped 1,000 yards rushing after posting his second game over the last 3 weeks with at least 110 rushing yards. Irving is the first Buccaneers back since 2015 when Doug Martin accomplished the feat of 1,000 yards rushing. And if you break down the 2024 running back class, Irving's 1,033 rushing yards are more than the 778 rushing yards combined by the 5 backs selected ahead of him. A lot of that comes down to volume. Over Irving's last 6 contests, he has earned 17 or more touches in 5 of those games. Also, in those 6 games, Irving has churned out 337 yards after contact while forcing 18 missed tackles. Breaking that number down even further, that's 0.2 missed tackles forced per attempt. 3.66 yards after contact per attempt, with 62.3% of his total yards coming after contact. That is all amongst the elite when it comes to the running back position. And not only is Irving coming off a performance in which he had 113 rushing yards and 77 receiving yards, but this is a great matchup against the Saints team that has allowed 24.87 fantasy points per game this season to the position, surrendering 1,765 rushing yards and 495 receiving yards, not to mention 18 total touchdowns. Another running back I feel good about this week is Tony Pollard of the Tennessee Titans as they take on the Houston Texans. Now, the jury, it is still out whether or not Tony Pollard is going to sit up this week after missing Week 17 with an ankle injury and an illness. That kept him away from traveling with the team. Now, Tajay Spears, he did travel and he did put on some miles there, rushing for 98 yards on 20 rushing attempts while adding 8 more yards on his 3 receptions. So with Spears filling it admirably for Pollard in his absence, why am I willing to plug Pollard back into my lineup with many people out there considering this a meaningless game? Follow the money. It's all about the Benjamins, people. Currently, Pollard is sitting at 1,017 rushing yards. If Pollard can top 83 yards on the ground, put him over 1,100 on the season, that is going to earn him an additional $250,000. If Pollard manages to find the end zone twice, that number, it jumps up to another $200,000. Put that cash straight in your pocket, straight cash, homie. Now, Houston's playoff seeding, it is already set, so it's highly probable that there are going to be many regulars here for the Houston Texans sitting out a portion of this contest, which is going to allow Pollard to attempt to reach those incentives against second or even third stringers. Now, my third running back I'm firing up this week, again, I'm following the money here, people. I'm following the incentives, and it's J.K. Dobbins of the Los Angeles Chargers as they take on the Las Vegas Raiders. Last week, Dobbins, he made his return to the Chargers lineup and promptly picked up where he left off before his injury. Against the Patriots, Dobbins would total 83 total yards there on 20 touches, including a rushing touchdown, propelling him to a 14-point fantasy performance. And like Pollard, Dobbins can earn himself a little extra money this week. Dobbins is 58 yards shy of earning himself $150,000. His 842 rushing yards are already a career high, but if he could run for 158 yards, and that is plausible against the Raiders team here, that would give him 1,000 on the season. Considering what he's battled through not only in the offseason, but this season, that would make this moment a little bit more special. The Raiders, they're in the middle of the pack when it comes to fantasy production yielded against opposing backs. This season, they are allowing 22.01 fantasy points per game. That is the 16th fewest, and 20.18 over the last 4 weeks. That's the 11th fewest. That all said, throw those numbers out because Dobbins, the last time he faced this Raiders team, he averaged 13.5 yards per carry there, running for 135 yards and a touchdown. Now, running backs that I'm fading this week, it starts with DeAndre Swift of the Chicago Bears against the Green Bay Packers. Last week's 12.1 fantasy point performance, That was the first time since week number 11 in which DeAndre Swift produced more than 10 fantasy points in any given game. Now from weeks 12 on, Swift, he's the RB27 in fantasy with just 54.2 fantasy points, averaging 9 fantasy points per game. And over that same period, Jalen Warren, Tajay Spears, Amir Abdullah, they have all been more productive than Swift has. Last Thursday marked the 9th consecutive game in which Swift failed to register 100 yards of total offense there, as he finished with just 81 yards on 16 opportunities. Against the Packers, those opportunities, they will likely be far and few between, as the Packers will likely force the Bears into throwing to keep up in this one. It's worth noting that in their last meeting, it was highly contested. In that earlier meeting, the Packers would prevail with a 20-19 victory. That was also the last time in which Swift found the end zone, as he has gone 6 contests without hitting pay dirt. Now the next running back I'm sitting is Chase Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals as they take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Brown's status heading into Week 18 is still to be determined after the Bengals running back injured his ankle, avoiding scoring a touchdown, only to have the Bengals score on the very next play. Cincinnati's season, it comes down to this game against the Steelers. It is the only part of the playoff equation in which the Bengals control. So Brown is going to do what he does best and get himself available for this contest. Cincinnati, they need him. They need him more than water. They need him more than air to breathe here, because Pittsburgh, they are allowing just 19.58 fantasy points per game to the running back position over the last 4 weeks. That is the 8th fewest. And over that stretch, Pittsburgh has allowed just 439 rushing yards, 134 receiving yards, but they've also allowed just 1 touchdown to the position. A one-legged Brown is still better than a two-legged Khalil Herbert here, but the matchup, it leaves very little to be desired. If Brown were healthy, I'd be okay starting him. I'd feel good about it. But since he's less than 100%, I'm going to have to fade him. And the third running back I'm fading this week, it is Tyrone Tracy Jr. of the New York Giants as they take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, it is unknown as of yet of what the Eagles are going to do. Are they going to rest their starters? Are they going to play them? What is it going to look like? So placing Tyrone Tracy Jr. on this list may be a little bit premature. Let's look at the numbers here. If the Eagles play their starters, the 14.6 fantasy points allowed over the last 4 weeks, that is more than enough to fade Tyrone Tracy in itself and this Giants running game. Philadelphia, they've allowed 344 total yards to the position over the last 4 weeks, and with Barkley just 100 yards shy there of Eric Dickerson's record, I expect the Eagles to run on first, second, and third down in order to get him this record against his former team, the team that kind of said, hey, thanks, but no thanks, see you later. And then in the process, this is going to drain the clock. But if you are done getting drained, head over to RotoBaller.com today to get all the latest fantasy news and analysis, and head over to the RotoBaller Discord channel where you'll get me there 24/7 answering all your fantasy football questions. See you next time.